Well, you only live once, maybe not. And this life right now might be all we've got. So let's contemplate the hereafter while we speculate with some laughter about this grim thing that happens to us all after that final curtain call. But before you take that final breath, let's laugh about.
Welcome to Let's Laugh About Death, the dramedy podcast that celebrates life while contemplating the inevitable. I'm your host, Tim Rooney, and this episode gets a little bit dark because, we talk about death. And I know that's what this podcast is about, but I mean like the actual act of dying. My guest today works in a hospital, and she sees people dying. She sees end-of-life type of situations, and we get into some of that. In fact, we get into a lot of that, and how people react to their own deaths, and how family members react to the deaths, and, just the physicality of the whole process. And everybody's different. Everybody's death is different, and everybody's, just like everybody's life is, their dying is different too. And so it's one of those subjects that I don't talk about too much on this podcast, because usually it's what happens after we die. This gets into what happens while we're dying. And it's, to me, that's the scariest part of death. I'm not afraid of dying itself, but I'm afraid of lingering. I'm afraid of dying horribly. And I'm not talking about being eaten by wolves out in the forest or something like that. I mean, that would suck, but at least it would be over relatively quickly, unless you're, Liam Neeson and you're hanging around for like 6 weeks with bottles taped to your knuckles and things like that, because he didn't die at the end of that movie. Come on. Anyway, the point I'm getting at is, my brother died with, cancer, and that was a long, drawn-out thing. I mean, if I go, not if I go, when I go, I want to go quick, but not all of us have that luxury, and my guest gets into some of that on this episode. And in fact, she made me promise to really promote the fact that you need to set some end-of-life plans. Google that. Google end-of-life plans, because it only makes it easier on you. It makes it easier on your family. There's no questions involved when it comes to attorneys and things like that. If you can set up end-of-life plans, you'll have your bases covered, and nobody can say a damn thing. But do it while you're of sound mind, because once it gets to a certain point, it's too late. So again, Google end-of-life plans. So now, on a happier note, I'm going to introduce my guest, Rhiann Olson. She goes by Ray. In fact, everybody that I know who knows her calls her Ray, but I knew of her before I talked to people who called her name out while I was around them. So for the longest time, they'd be like, yeah, Ray. And I'm like, who the hell's Ray? And I'm thinking this other person, Ray, that I know. So anyway, that was kind of funny, but I think we might even get into it in the podcast. But yeah, so here's my episode with Ray, and enjoy. Good. You still doing the same gig as last time I saw you?
Sure am.
Cool. And so tell me a little bit about that. I know about it, but people in our ears don't listen or don't know about it. I guess I shouldn't say they don't listen. That was a Freudian slip on my part. So they're listening. We're not listening. What's that?
Just kind of explain what I do.
Yeah. That's so what? You know what? In fact, I really don't know what you do. I remember running into you a few times up on the 3rd floor at the hospital there. But what? Give me a rundown of a typical day for you, or a typical night, because I know you were working thirds.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a patient care tech at the hospital. They use patient care tech instead of CNA because somebody with an EMT's license or an LPN license can also be a patient care tech. So basically, I'm a CNA.
Okay.
Certified nursing assistant. So, and I'm in the resource department at my hospital. So when I come in, I have to go to the nursing office, and they'll have a little sticky note and tell me which floor, what unit I'm going to, and I have to punch in specifically to that unit, payroll and all that. and then they pretty much tell me what I'm going to be doing.
Okay. What kind of...
Like,
go ahead.
Resource kind of acts like extra staff, especially the PCTs is different from the nurses.
What is a PCT?
Because if you're in...
What's a PCT?
Patient care tech.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah. I was thinking that you said CNA, so my mind automatically went CNA direction. So PCT is the acronym for them. Okay, I guess I should have known that. Okay.
So, though, with the nurses on Resource, basically you'll always have a team of patients that you take care of. As a PCT, I can either have a group of patients that I take care of, or I can be what's known as the close-obs or a one-on-one, which basically means there's a patient that's either confused or acting up or some kind of behavior issue that's not being managed, that I have to sit either close by or sit in with them and make sure that they behave all night.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which can be exciting or it can be extremely boring.
So when I would hear those code grays and stuff, would it be those kinds of people that would be, for those listening, code gray was like a combative patient?
Like a Dr. Strong at some hospitals, or, basically shit's hitting the fan. Send your biggest guys. We need help. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, and that's good that they've got those kind of codes for people. The patients don't really know what it is, but because you don't want people panicking. But yeah. So, how long have you been doing that now? I've been at the hospital for about 2.5 years, but I've been a CNA for, I just renewed my license again, 4 years. Oh, nice. Okay. So I'm sure you've probably seen some interesting things. Yeah, some of the most interesting stuff, too, was before I was a CNA. I started my medical journey as a unit secretary. Okay. I worked in Saginaw. Okay. So, and I worked nights there, too. I was also kind of a float deal. So between me and one other coworker, we would float the entire hospital. Back then, they still had paper charts. I'd have to read doctor's handwriting, which I got decently good at. There are a few tricks. Nice. And put in patient orders. I'd have to go to all the codes. I would, anything major happened. We once had a fire on one of our floors. Oh, wow. So I showed up and helped transfer patients from rooms to, blocking off that section. Oh, like a full-on fire, like not just not a trash can fire. Wow. Okay. No, it was minimal. I mean, the fire department still showed up. Oh, of course. I think one of the light ballasts blew and hit some linen that was sitting on a chair. Okay. So, and then I had to literally clean up the desk because there was smoke everywhere, and then change probably 25, 30 charts. Jeez, yeah. Change all the labels, relabel everything, move them into new spots, do all the computer work. It was a serious pain in the ass. That sucks. So. Yeah, but, I mean, so they still used, I know when I was working at the hospital last, we were using, computer software for all the records and everything. Were they still using the paper records at that time? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're still using the computers. Every once in a while, well, that was the hospital in Saginaw, 5 years ago. But here we're still using the computerized systems. Yeah. We have very minimal in the paper charts, usually for your consent forms, anything that comes with the patient if they're transferred. Yeah, that makes sense. Face sheets for the doctor, all that fun stuff. Yeah, it's just easier than having to deal with trying to pull it up. You've got a handy paper copy, and then of course for signatures and things like that, and releases and stuff, that makes sense. So, but so let's get into the nitty gritty. You kind of gave me some ideas here of some crazy stuff. What is I mean, we know what the subject of the podcast is. We're just going to jump right into it. What is the what's the craziest thing in sense of whether it was a death or, and I'm not saying all hey, let's make fun of it. I mean, that's not really what this podcast is about. It's making light of death, but what is the most interesting, fascinating, whatever type of situation that you have witnessed yourself when it comes to, the subject of death? I think the most interesting thing on my end is mainly families.
Okay.
Their reaction to death, whether it's unexpected or planned, because I worked in long-term care for a couple of years before I worked at the hospital, so I got to see a lot of different aspects.
I'm sure.
Families who knew that their loved one was, on the way down, that kind of thing, stayed and helped care for them. Families that never came in, and when they passed, just have the funeral home pick them up.
Wow.
And they lived like 2 blocks away.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's how did that make you and the staff react when you've got somebody that you are? I mean, I'll be honest with you. One of the things with hospitals is hospitals, in my opinion, and I worked in one for years, but I mean, I've stayed in hospitals myself, being sick and et cetera. It's not so much that they are there to, what's the word I'm looking for? They just don't necessarily want you to die there kind of thing. You know what I mean? In other words, it's like, we're going to get you better.
Yeah.
And then you go home so that you can continue to get better. But when you got patients that you are basically just preparing for that, what I refer to on the theme song as a final curtain call, when you are working with somebody and you've put all that effort into keeping them comfortable or keeping them alive or trying to get them resuscitated, to have their family just discard them like that, how does that make you feel?
Honestly, it's pretty infuriating.
That's would have been my guess, but I wanted you to tell me how because I would have been pissed. I would be pissed when that happens. It's like, really, they mean that little to you. For so many levels, I'd be pissed. But how do you guys usually handle that?
Well, when somebody dies, it goes to the next of kin or the DPOA, which is a durable power of attorney.
Okay.
Paperwork you sign to basically say, if I'm incapacitated, I can't make my own legal decisions, I want X person to handle my decisions. That's a durable power of attorney.
Okay.
So, I mean, you see it a lot with older patients and residents, whichever your term may be, working in long-term care or the hospital.
Yeah.
But, basically in the nursing homes, you don't have to go as in-depth with aftercare as far as a nursing standpoint. From a CNA standpoint, it's all pretty much the same, unless the family has special requests.
Okay.
Which I've had 1 or 2. So after somebody dies, and usually, and I always thought it was interesting, it's something that you can physically see on somebody when they're dying.
Explain.
Given skin tone, and it's a term called mottling.
Mottling?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's basically like a graying or sometimes a bruising of the skin. And the farther it advances, the closer somebody is to death.
Okay.
You can usually see it in the extremities, usually the feet, and it starts to work its way up the body.
How long does something like that usually take?
It can kind of depend.
Okay.
Person to person. Sometimes it goes really quick. From the beginning of a shift, their feet are kind of mottled, to the end of the shift, it's at their knees. To, days later, maybe it's worked just the rest of the way up the foot, and
Yeah.
So it really depends.
So
it can be hard to see with some people.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, depending on their skin tones, etc. But so when they find a body after 5 days of being dead and decomposing. Yeah, decomposition. Thank you. Hasn't started kicking in. That's when they're gray. That's what is that kind of one of the ways they're able to determine how long a body's been dead, kind of thing, is by the level of mottling.
Well, mottling can be kind of back and forth. And I said it kind of depends on the person. I'm not sure what exactly determines the speed of modeling.
Okay.
And sometimes not everybody models. They just kind of go, especially if it's unexpected. But you're talking like 80, 90-year-old woman who's, been battling cancer and is slowly, home hospice or comfort care. You can tell when it's coming.
Gotcha.
And then usually once the modeling starts, it reaches a certain point, then you have what's known as the death rattle.
Yeah, what exactly is that? I've heard that term.
Yeah, it's something you can literally hear when you're next to somebody, you're taking care of them. It's a way that they're breathing, very labored in and out breathing. It's very hoarse. It is kind of rattly, like they've got a bunch of junk in there.
Gotcha.
And usually that's what it is, excess fluid in the lungs, as far as I know. Maybe I'm wrong, but it would make sense that it's extra fluid in the lungs that's kind of compressing their chest and causing that kind of phlegmy rattle.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. When you have a bad cold and it's got that almost like kind of rattly, when you're breathing. But when they're doing the modeling and they're doing, final stages.
The rattle usually means they're close.
Yeah. That's. Have you ever seen anybody who is modeling but isn't? Or I should say is more coherent, more aware, more, they know they're going, or does it, when modeling and death rattle and all that kicks in, is that usually when they're, like, out of it?
Everything that I've seen, and I've seen plenty, but I've certainly I haven't seen everything.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But usually once somebody reaches that stage, they're on such a high level of comfort care. Mm-hmm. We're giving them morphine. We're giving them Dilaudid, for pain control, that they're pretty much unconscious.
Gotcha. Okay. That's, which would make sense then why something like that, they probably aren't being, the modeling, you're able to, like, see it just kind of kick in because, there's not much movement or activity in that, so. But, so what is, have you ever had instances where people have gone out and come back kind of thing, or any close calls, or, just being a PCT, see, I used the right acronym there. Being a PCT, did you have anybody like, come in from an emergency, an accidental bolt through the head or something, and then all of a sudden they check out for a minute and come back? Have you ever experienced any of those?
Not really. No, I mean, you get people who are very, very sick all the time, but, actually in nursing homes, you would have, you'd see, your residents who, when they come in, they just kind of sink into a depression. They stop eating, they stop getting up, that kind of a thing, kind of mourning the loss of their freedom, individuality, that kind of thing. It's kind of it's a thing that happens sometimes.
Gotcha. Almost like they're mourning their own death.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's interesting.
And sometimes when people are getting close to going, sometimes they know it before we do. Sometimes we'll say, you put them to bed at night. Okay, love you, Miss So-and-so, and love you too, because, when you work with them every day, we're the ones that they tell I love you at night and good morning when they wake up, and it's a serious connection.
Yeah.
So it really hurts when they pass, but at the same time, it's something we have to deal with. Absolutely.
Well, and if it's one of those things where you've had them in your care for such a long time, it's probably for their best, it's in their best interest to go at that point, because I'm sure a lot of them are probably not, they're probably suffering to some degree at least.
Yeah. But some of them, they'll start to decline, and sometimes they'll even be bedridden for a few days, and then the family will be around, and they'll think, oh, yeah, grandma, mom, whoever, they're probably going to go, all the family comes, and then they leave, and the next 2 or 3 days, even.
Mm-hmm.
They're up out of bed. They're going to dinner.
Really? So you've had
getting dressed and going around, and they kind of have their second wind almost, or at least sitting up and eating for a while.
Okay, so
and
you've seen turnarounds to some degree then.
Yeah.
That's
It's usually kind of a last hurrah,
mm-hmm.
and then they just go.
Gotcha. So then that,
So
yes.
it's not so much like a near-death experience. But
No.
it's kind of, yeah.
But I guess it's man, excuse me. It would be almost more of like a, I don't know, like a last hurrah, a reprisal of some kind of like, no, I'm going to do this one last thing, and an encore. It's almost like an encore, it's like, we're going to do this last moment, we're going to have this last family time, and then I'm going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's...
it's really kind of, it's kind of strange, because when you work with people for so long and you've seen that over and over again, the family always reacts the same. And it's, oh, mom's doing better. Mom's doing good. And then that night you have to call them. They're gone.
Yeah.
What? I thought they were doing so much better. And it's always that kind of extra shock, unfortunately. But it gives them that last kind of time to see their loved one doing well.
Yeah, well, and it gives them that time to be able to connect with them, and if anything, if they know what's going on, if they know that it's an encore, so to speak, that they can have time to say their goodbyes. Because I'm sure you see it all the time where people are like, I never had a chance to say goodbye, or in the case where they didn't care because they lived 2 blocks away, didn't want to bother coming in. That's irritating, but yeah. So I mean, it's, if anything, the people who experience that probably are grateful that they had a chance to say goodbye while the person had their faculties.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what, with that being said, what do you think, what do you think happens? Where do you think, we go? What do we do? I mean, I've got all kinds of theories. That's the whole point of the podcast is, contemplating the inevitable. What happens when we die? Is it a heaven? Is it, is it a matrix? Is it, who knows what? What do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to really think anything, honestly. I've kind of considered myself an agnostic.
Okay.
I kind of think there might be something. I think there's too many coincidences and too many, strange happenings that there can't be something. But to narrow down exactly what it is, I'm never going to know.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is, and that's one of the the themes of the podcast also is we don't know. We really don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who says they know for certain, they've got a good guess. They got a pretty good guess. They got faith in it, and I won't knock anybody for their faith or their beliefs or whatever. But I mean, we might find that there's a group of 25 people that are living in, some woods somewhere who have a cult where they're worshiping soda cans, and it's like, oh, well, they were the correct ones. God is a giant can of Dr. Pepper, whatever. But it's, it's a case of we don't know what happens, and I like your honesty, and the fact that you're agnostic in the sense that you don't believe in I'm assuming the stereotypical, old man. Every time I think of God, I picture God from The Simpsons, with the legs and the beard and all that. You don't see the face, you just see everything else. When people say, G-O-D with a capital G, God. But there's the flying spaghetti monster. There's all different types of things. And yeah, there's too many coincidences for it to just be random, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
I think it kind of depends person to person, religion, belief.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's kind of what shapes what you see, what you experience, is your experiences through life.
Yeah. No, that's
what you think of as angels, what you think of as God, an almighty being, Allah, whoever.
Yeah.
Is what you end up experiencing.
Absolutely. I think all angels look like Lemmy from Motorhead. But I just pulled that out of my ass. I just figuring, why not? No, but seriously, it's like, who are we to say? I mean, for all we know, angels are the celebrities here, you know? And we all, quote unquote, worship them to some degree, don't we? You know, so I mean, we could look at it in any kinds of speculative ways that, you know, it's just one of those things that, again, we won't know. And I think a lot of times it comes down to the religion, how you were raised, what your belief system is. And I've said this before, where I think a lot of religions basically are just rewordings for ultimately the same thing. You know, different names for the same thing. I mean, you can call it. I got a friend at work that we argue, and he maintains that Italians call marinara gravy, and so we go back and forth. It's gravy, it's marinara, it's ragu, it's whatever, you know. And so but it's all names for the same thing. It's red gravy. It's just gravy. So the point is, I mean, how many names in the Christian and Jewish Bible, you know, the Jewish Old Testament, Christian Bible, et cetera, are there for God, and how many names for everything else? And then you've got Hindu, you got Muslim, you got all the different religions, and it's like, you know, I can honestly see why you would want to be agnostic too, is because you can look at it from the other angle and be like, okay, well then who's right? You know, somebody's got to be right.
Maybe all of them are talking about the same exact thing from a different perspective.
From a different perspective,
because
exactly.
if you look from the different religions, a lot of them kind of intermingle.
Oh yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
There's the walking on water. There's the risen from the dead. There's December 25th being the birth of whoever it happens to be. It's all kind of the same story over and over again.
Exactly.
In some of them.
Go ahead.
The real basis of any of the religions, though, is the same. Don't be an asshole.
Yeah, exactly. Love thy neighbor, you know.
How many metaphors and books do you need to not be a dick?
Thank you. And that's really what it comes down to is, you know, it's love thy neighbor, or, you know, be good unto others, whatever you want to call it. It's really just, don't be an asshole. Because it doesn't get you anywhere. So, you know, those of you listening who, you know, the millions of you listening who've cut me off in traffic, don't be an asshole. But, no. But I'm exaggerating about the millions, of course, you know. But I can dream. But
who knows? We might get there.
We might get there. But anyway, yeah, and there are a lot of repetition. In fact, I've got a friend who passed away last year who was essentially agnostic, and he showed me this documentary about how, you know, all the different religions have the same kind of thing. So therefore, Christ was just based upon the same kinds of stuff. And it's like, okay, well, who's to say that they weren't all, you know, I guess the guys or women, whoever, from the same kind of concept. In other words, look at it this way. So you got a superhero who was representing the Muslim religion. You got superheroes that were representing. Actually, you know what? I learned something recently. Hindu is actually a monotheistic religion, from what I understand. And anybody who is follows Hinduism, if I've got this wrong, I apologize. I should brush up on that stuff. But it's a monotheistic religion with different faces of the same God, is the way I took it. And I thought that was fascinating, you know, because I always thought it was a polytheistic. Yeah, so it's kind of it's kind of in the same sense of like with the way it was explained to me, as it said, like you, Ray, you've got several personas. You are Ray. You are. Do you have any siblings?
Nope.
Jerk. You, but you're Ray, your girlfriend, your daughter, if you had, for example, if you had siblings, you could be aunt.
There's many facets.
Exactly. So, but that superhero who is the Hindu god, and that superhero who is the Muslim, you know, and God, and the Christian God, you know, Jesus, et cetera, they all might be the same. And I don't want to use the term superhero as a insulting type of thing. I'm talking about that is their power figure of their religion, where it is the manifestation in a certain way, and they're all basically doing the same kind of thing, trying to do the same kind of message. Like you said, don't be an asshole. So, yeah, it's pretty fascinating. It's definitely one of those things that I like toy around with. I've toyed around with it forever. You know, and who knows? I mean, death could be a different experience for everybody. I've talked to people recently who gave me that thought, and that blew my mind. Because yeah, if life is different for everyone, why would death be the same for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I guess what's the craziest thing that you've ever seen in terms of death? You know, you talk about the mottling, you talk about the death rattle.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever have someone, come in with like, I didn't want to necessarily bring this up, but, and again, don't use names, but, like what is the craziest thing that you ever saw where it was, somebody died horrifically that, because I've heard of, I'll give you an example. I'll get you what I'm getting at. I've heard of people, you're familiar with the Zilwaukee Bridge. People listening, it's a bridge that crosses over the Saginaw River in Zilwaukee, and it was pretty high. It was a suspension bridge, or not a suspension bridge, but it was like a traditional bridge. Picture like the bridges over like rivers in New York, et cetera, but it's up there probably a good 100 feet or so, and there have been stories of people who jump off the bridge, and I remember talking to a cop one time who said that the person jumped off the bridge, landed kind of half in the river, half not in the river, and they found them, and they were still alive, and they didn't want to die, and it's like, sorry, your lungs are poking out of your chest, that kind of thing. There's nothing we can do for you. Mm-hmm. Did you ever see any instances of that where people are aware, like really aware, and, because usually when people die horrifically, it's quick, or people know it's coming for a while. Did you ever have people who were, like, aware that they were going to die, there's not a damn thing that can be done about it, and they don't want to go kind of thing?
You don't really see too much of that up on the floors. That would be more kind of like an ER thing.
Gotcha.
Or maybe
Okay.
ICU.
Okay.
I do work in ICUs every once in a while, but usually it's just for somebody, won't keep their high flow on or is trying to pull out their central line and they're going to bleed everywhere if they do, and you need to make sure that stays in or they're going to die kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying. Yeah, that's my job. Make sure you don't die. Awesome. Only 11 hours and 55 minutes left to go, and then it's somebody else's problem.
So you're doing the 312s, or?
Yep.
Nice. I always thought that would be a cool shift. I mean, it's a long shift, but you got a 4-day weekend every week. That's kind of nice.
Well, it's a rotation. Right now I have 4 off because I think I do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then a Wednesday, and then I come back the next week, Monday, Tuesday. So it's kind of broken up. But it's a rotation every 2 weeks.
I see. Okay. So you mentioned being scared. Give me an instance that scared the shit out of you when you were dealing with a patient, whether it was a combative patient or a somebody, like you said, yanked a line out and they're flatlining on you kind of thing. What have you had any of those instances that really?
I've never had anything that put a patient's life in serious danger.
Okay, well, I mean, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. I like to say I'm pretty good at my job. And that nobody died that wasn't supposed to or going that way anyway. So
you know what? Fault. Brag about that shit, because that's something to be proud of, That's definitely something to be proud of. So.
Yeah, at the hospital, we try very hard not to let anyone die.
Yeah.
As in, like, we're just not going to do anything. If they died, we didn't let them die. We fought for every second they had. Got
it. Yeah. No, that's cool. I mean, that is that Hippocratic oath, where it's like, do whatever you can to preserve life. So, I mean, you're doing your job. You're taking that oath. Yeah. So.
And I happen to have my own. Do no harm, but take no shit.
Nice.
Some of the patients are assholes. I will admit that. And working in healthcare, you can't deny that.
Of course.
Some patients are assholes.
Well, let's be honest. You're dealing with people. Not everybody's going to come through there. There's going to be a chipper old grandma or grandpa kind of thing, or young kid or whatever. So, I mean, that makes sense. But yeah, don't put up with shit. There's no reason you should have to, and it's cool that the hospital has your back on that. Get a good backhand on them once in a while, as long as the cameras aren't looking. No, but seriously, that's a good motto to take. You shouldn't have to take
Yeah.
shit on that. You're there to help them.
I did have one patient that absolutely terrified me once.
Okay.
I did not want to take them back the next night. I didn't. I was kind of scared shitless the first night. Uber confused.
Okay.
Like, long history of not only dementia, but also mental illness, schizophrenia, bipolar, which not all people like that are bad or
No, of course not.
angry or combative. This person just happened to be.
Gotcha.
They were also probably 7-8 inches taller than I were. A lot more toned, muscle, older, but in decent fighting shape. Yeah.
Yeah.
Had assaulted multiple staff while they were there.
Wow. Why
They
would
came in for something. They came in for something unrelated. I think it was an infection, a UTI or something, or urinary retention. They couldn't pee.
Okay.
Which a UTI, urinary tract infection, when you are older, one of the symptoms is confusion.
Okay.
Or personality changes. They can become violent. They can become, et cetera, because of this infection. It affects you different when you get older.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. This person, they actually really liked me for a while. They were holding my hand, and they were walking up and down the hallways, and they were fine. And then all of a sudden, they wanted to go into a specific room, but the door was closed.
Uh-huh.
So I'd maneuvered them away from patient rooms before, and it was fine. Well, also he had the IV pole, and we had the catheter bag I was carrying for them. So, and he wants to go into this patient's room. I told him, well, I think somebody's sleeping in there. It's like about 2 o'clock in the morning. Can we let them sleep?
Mm-hmm.
And he turned to me, looked me dead in the eyes, said no, and opened the door. And I tried to, pull him away, and he shoved me.
Oh, boy.
Meanwhile, I've got his catheter bag in my hand. And he's behind the door trying to slam it in my face.
This is like right out of
I pushed my way in.
Oh, God.
And I had already yelled for my coworkers. I let them know that they were ramping up and, kind of be on edge. So I yell, I shove open the door, and he pushes me.
Oh, boy.
Slams me into this closet, and then starts reaching for my throat.
Wow.
Meanwhile, 2 or 3 nurses come in and just grab him and pull him out of this poor guy's room. This guy, he was so tiny, like malnourished and young too.
Yeah.
He's like cowering under the blankets, and I look back,
God.
I'm so sorry, and I just leave and I shut the door behind me.
Yeah.
I felt so bad.
Well, imagine waking up to that. I mean, shit.
Right?
Yeah. But that I could just picture him behind the door, and you've got the catheter bag outside the door.
Yeah. I've got his catheter bag. Like,
oh my God.
Okay, slam the door. See how well that feels.
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to be awesome.
Oh, that's like right out of like an Adam Sandler movie or something. Oh, that's awful. But well, it would serve him right if he had successfully yanked that puppy out. But yeah, that's some scary shit.
That would have sucked, and then we would have probably had to have CDI or continuous bladder irrigation, which is a pain in the ass when the patient doesn't want to move around. Then we'd have to keep him in bed, and he doesn't want to stay in bed.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That would have been worse.
Yeah, that's definitely some scary shit. Have you seen, speaking of like delusion and that, have you seen anybody like get up and walk around when they're getting close to the end and not when they're doing the mottling and all that kind of stuff, and when they're just being sedated and made comfortable, but like people who, I guess you'd mentioned the people who have that little, again, I'll refer to it as the encore, people who have the encore who get up and they're just kind of confused, walking around, seeing dead relatives, any of that kind of stuff and all?
Well, that's a normal daily occurrence for anybody working at a nursing home.
Yeah,
People
true.
are confused and just walking around and doing their thing, and,
Yeah, that's a good
I
point.
wouldn't say they're necessarily like, close to death or anything, but that's pretty much a daily thing in a nursing home. Half your patients are up and walking around. Oh, hey, Greg, have you seen Sally?
Yeah,
Sure.
true.
Yeah. That way. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and honestly, now that you mention it, I mean, my mom is in a home right now, and she thinks some days that she works there. Because when I was little, she used to volunteer at a nursing home. So some days she thinks she works there. Some days she thinks that her parents are alive. And of course they would be like 110 by now. But her parents are alive, and and she's going over there to see them. So I mean, I can only imagine the stuff they see in a nursing home, and then of course you've got even that more end result. You've got people who are being brought from the nursing home there. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks when people deteriorate like that. It would be on some regards it's kind of nice when someone can go out with their full faculties, but then in the same sense they're kind of cheated. So it's like it's what's the better option?
Yeah.
So.
And there's definitely been plenty of strange occurrences, like post-mortem. When I was,
yeah, tell me about that.
When I was at, kind of gave you the little brief overview earlier.
Yeah.
So
I'm curious.
when I was working in Saginaw as a secretary, I wasn't even supposed to be in patient rooms. But one night we had these two patients down at the end of the hallway. They were right across from each other, very end of the hallway by the stairs. One was, little old lady, maybe 85, 87, whatever. She was, we were getting her ready to go home on hospice. The other one was, I want to say he was in his 40s, liver cancer, close to death as well, very jaundiced, very puffy from all the medications and, the chemo and steroids and all kinds of stuff. It was probably about 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sitting at the desk, and it was like death wandered up the back stairwell, took one, had final goodbyes, and then casually strolled across the hallway and took the other.
Wow.
They died within 5 minutes of each other.
Wow.
No correlation, didn't even know each other.
Yeah.
Nothing. It was crazy.
Well, you mentioned post-mortem, like what
yeah.
What's some of the craziest shit you've seen with that? Like, I hear stories of, bodies doing all kinds of crazy shit.
Actually,
one of
them that night was actually my first post-mortem care. I wasn't supposed to be in the room, but the CNA was like, well, they're dead. Fuck it. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Kill them?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Besides, you want to be a CNA anyways. You might as well come and learn.
Yeah,
like,
true.
All right. So we go into the room, and what you do once somebody passes is you give them the final bath, change their clothes, new hospital gown, fresh linens, everything clean, everything white, especially if the family wants to say their last goodbyes.
Gotcha.
Before we put them in the bag and take them down to morgue, or put them in the bag and wait for the funeral home to come pick them up.
Yeah.
However, it plays out how the family wanted it to go. If they have a funeral home picked out, they'll be called, we'll come and get them. If not, they still have to make arrangements. They'll go down to morgue for a while.
Okay.
So I helped her wash this little lady, removed all of her lines, her IVs, took the nasal cannula off, all that kind of thing. Got her back down to just her. No drains, no lines, no nothing. I helped her wash her. We get her in the body bag, which are white, by the way. They're not black like you see on TV.
Okay.
I'm sure maybe the ones like outside, like if you have an open area death, they'll be black. But in the hospital, they're white.
They're white. Gotcha.
Yeah. So, and then we transfer her to this metal cart, which the ones in Saginaw, was like a flat cart, and then on each corner they had a hole for a post, and then this topper went on with a like a fake sheet that slid down over it. So basically, it kind of looked like an empty cart rolling down the hallway.
Nice.
So
Okay.
the other patients didn't know.
Gotcha. Okay, I wondered about that.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's actually kind of cool in the sense that it gives last respect or some kind of dignity to the body while you're walking through. So okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it looks so much different than the other beds. It's kind of like slapping a sticker on a hooker and saying that it's not one.
Well, yeah, but most of your general, your patients aren't going to really pick up on that.
Yeah.
So.
But so we moved her to the metal cart, and she had told me, "Well, grab a pillow." So I grab a pillow, I put it on the cart because I've got her head, she's got the feet. We move her over, and she's like, "Okay, go ahead and take out the pillow." I kind of yanked the pillow out without thinking about it.
Okay.
And it was the loudest clang. I remember I felt so bad. I just froze, and I looked over at my coworker, and she's just standing there, mouth open. "Why did you do it that hard?" I'm like, "I didn't know." She's like, "It's a person." I'm like, "Please tell me they can tell if it's pre-mortem or post-mortem head fracture." She's like, "It should be fine."
Oh, boy.
I really feel like that woman may be haunting me now.
Yeah. I mean, geez. Oh, that's awesome.
I didn't even think about it. I was so disconnected from it.
Well, yeah. I mean,
when she was in the bag, it's not like you're visually looking at a person.
Yeah.
I've gotten better since then.
I'm sure. Have you ever experienced any crazy? Yeah, I mean, you know me with the whole haunted Saginaw stuff. Have you experienced any crazy shit at the hospital at night? Or during the day? Hauntings don't have to take place. Okay, we got a little time left. Tell me some of your crazy stories there.
We have electrical gremlins, which electrical gremlins, sure. we call them our haunted rooms. Every once in a while, there'll be a room, a light will just go on, and it'll be like a second nurse verify, or not something like a patient light.
Yeah.
It'll be something weird like that, and it'll just go on, and we have to go in there, and there's nobody in the room. That's creepy. Then I did an orientation night down in the ER. And she was telling me, well, this one room here, we put, if somebody dies down here, we put them in there because it's a really nice big open room. It's supposed to be for contact. If somebody comes in contact with something and it's, contagious, this room is, the negative pressure lockdown. So it's nice and open, and there's a back entrance to it. And this is where we put the bodies once they've gone. We had this little girl that had drowned, and we worked on her for probably an hour, and she was in here. Family was there for probably 3 hours before we finally took care of her.
Oh, boy.
But I've had nights where I come in and, to restock, tele leads or whatever it is, and I've had somebody tug on my scrubs.
Really?
It felt like something tugged on my scrubs. I've put a new gown on the end of the bed. I come back later to check the settings for the negative pressure, which you have to do every night, and the gown's on the floor. I put it back, and I talked to all my nurses. Yeah, that's real funny. You guys know that's the haunted room. Who knocked it off? And everybody just looks at each other. I'm like, guys, you gotta be kidding with me. No. Who did it? Nope.
Yeah.
So I went back there, and it was on the floor again.
Again? Nice.
Again.
Did you ever...
I put it on the bed, and I kind of said to no one in particular, I'd like to keep this room really nice and clean for the next person who comes in, so if this can stay on the bed, that'd be really nice.
Reasoning with it.
Yeah. And then after she tells me this, we're going around and restocking the rooms, and we left that one and went to the next one, and she goes, oh, by the way, I was telling you those stories, I forgot to restock the room. Go in and take care of that, would you? By myself.
Hey, yeah, of course.
You just told me this, and you want me to go into that room by myself. Fuck you.
I remember, I can't think of her name. There was a woman who worked there who was like, she worked in laundry, and linens and things like that. And she swears she saw almost like a girl from like The Ring walking around. However true that is or whatever. But, did you ever see crazy weird like things out of the corner of your eye or anything like that? Or just straight on visual? Because I'll be honest with you, I've seen some weird shit at that hospital. You know, I saw a woman, I swear I saw a woman when I was going to leave to go get something to eat. I turned around, I saw like a woman in scrubs, like it was a nurse or something. And I turn back to the door and I look back and she's gone. And there's no way she moved that quick. You know, so again, it could have been in my mind. I could have been, imagining it, but she was clear as day when I looked. So.
Yeah. I've never had anything like that. Then again, when you're working on the floor, it's usually so busy and crazy.
True.
You don't have a lot of downtime.
Yeah.
Sometimes at night, it's mostly just the call lights and that kind of thing that go off. And
well, of course, but it's things that you'll
and
notice.
Creepy ceilings and empty rooms, maybe, and
totally.
You just get this weird, like, I don't know, something's wrong with this, and I don't like it.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's something, when it's busy, it's easier for me to notice something because I would work third shift by myself. There'd be nobody around. Mm-hmm. So I would see any kind of movement. I went down into the basement one time and I heard a little kid laughing, and I learned afterwards that was where the morgue used to be. And it was just like, oh, that's creepy, This was 3 a.m. and I'm hearing a little kid laughing in a hallway, and it was just like, fuck me, so, but, yeah, when you've got all that.
I thought it was funny at the hospital, too. The cafeteria is 1,700. The morgue is 0,700. So it's literally right below the cafeteria.
The new one, yeah. They moved the morgue recently, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of gross, But at least it's not 2,700, because then you'd have leakage and all that kind of yummy stuff. So, but yeah, I've heard stories at that hospital, but I mean, you're gonna get that at any hospital, If there's gonna be hauntings and stuff at any hospital, and it's like, yeah, you see. But what I was gonna say is with you guys being so busy, you're not going to notice everything. For all you know, when there's 20 people walking through the hall, you're not going to notice the 21st person who just happens to be there for a split second. So yeah, I could see why you wouldn't see anything. But yeah, the lights, there's no mistaking that. Linens falling off of things, and you go back in and it's back on the floor, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But yeah, that's got to be fun, especially on third shift. Yeah, you can have hauntings during the day. They just seem to magnify at night. During the witching hour, whatever you want to call it. So it's always fun. But
full moons are not a joke. It's a whole thing.
I've heard that. My mom used to work.
The Q word, you don't say the Q word in a hospital.
I don't even want to know what the Q word is.
Quiet.
Why? I'm curious now.
Quiet. Shit goes wrong.
Oh, yeah, I have heard that.
Every time.
I have heard
that. You're a combative, weird, crazy person who finally went to sleep. Somebody walks by. Wow, it's really quiet in here. I don't care if it's a patient walking around, a doctor coming through, a supervisor, a visitor going by. You guys having a quiet night? You shut your mouth. Grandma starts yelling.
Yeah. It's almost like, break a leg in a theater kind of thing. It's like exactly. You don't want to say Macbeth. But that's awesome. Yeah, I have heard that. My mom was an RN for years she worked in the nursery in Saginaw. Nice. Oh shit. Maybe they knew each other. Although then again, she's been retired for like almost 30 years. So, but anyway, I guess on that note, I definitely appreciate the chat. It was kind of neat catching up on hospital stories, and I remember running into you a lot of times when I'd be going and cleaning the time clocks, which was so trivial. It's like, okay.
It was so much fun in the morning.
Yeah, well, it was like
You're always smiling and just skipping around. I don't know how you had that much energy in the morning.
every time. But, yeah, it was just, it always seemed like, why am I going and cleaning time clocks when all I did was take a credit card without a strip on it, almost like a time card without a strip, put an alcohol swab on it and run it through it. and you guys are in a hospital facility with alcohol swabs all over the place, and you guys could have done the same thing. And instead of waiting on me, there were times where people were like, can you come and clean the time clock? It's like, you guys could do it right now, but I would go and clean them because it got me out of the office. And But yeah, I'd run into you a few times, and it was, it was interesting just catching up. Yeah, it was cool catching up today. So I definitely appreciate you talking with me, Ray.
Yeah, no problem.
And I'm going to ask you
Always
something.
interesting.
This is something. It's going to sound really weird because I know of you as Ray, but your name is spelled. How is your official, proper names pronounced? I always thought it was Rhiann. Is that true or not?
Rhiann.
It is Rhiann. That's what I thought. And you would think that I would know that, but I remember it was for a while there because I would call you Rhiann, and then everybody else would be like, oh, Ray, and I'm like, who is Ray? And they're like, Rhiann. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So then I was like, then I just started calling you Ray.
It's usually a hard name for people to remember, so I just call me Ray. It started in middle school or high school. And
gotcha. Okay, well, that makes sense.
Everybody at work knows me as Rhiann, though.
Yeah.
Some of the names I have to learn, they can learn my fucking name, too. Just add it to your list.
You got it. People slaughter my wife's name all the time, so it's like she'll be like, no, it's Angelique. It's not Angie. It's not Angela, So, but, well, hey, I definitely appreciate the chat, and say hi to everybody back in Michigan there, and, I'll definitely keep in contact.
Do we have time for another little tidbit, I guess, on the subject of death and everything? Working in healthcare, I mean, people are listening. I like to promote it as much as possible. It's a hard conversation to have with people.
Okay.
But you really need to have the conversation about end of life. Whether it's, your parents are getting older, whatever it is, what somebody's wishes might be. Because honestly, you never know when something's going to happen. Do they want to be kept alive? Do they want to be a DNR? Do they want to just not be intubated? It's a conversation that not enough people have. I had a patient one night that really upset me. I woke my dad up the next morning asking him, what do you want to do?
Wow.
What is your plan? What would you, if something catastrophic were to happen, what do you want me to do? I would be the next of kin.
Yeah.
Considering mom's gone, what do you want? Understand your role in somebody else's life if something were to happen. And just, it can be a hard conversation, not necessarily that anything is going to happen.
No, it's real.
It'll help give you peace of mind.
Absolutely.
That what you do if something were to happen is the right thing to do.
Do you have any? I'm actually glad that you mentioned that. I feel kind of bad that I was like, hey, it was good talking with you, and you brought up a real serious subject. But I mean, this is actually very good stuff. I mean, this is something people. I agree. They definitely need to know. I mean, we had a situation. I won't get into it, but it was a mess, And I've got a friend going through the same kind of mess right now. And in fact, just yesterday, he posted an article about, he's like, I'm dealing with this same kind of bullshit. Do you have resources or anything like that out there that you could recommend, like a service? How there's like Rocket Lawyer or whatever the hell it's called, or the online lawyer sites, et cetera, et cetera. Are there any places that you know of that I'll just put it right in the liner notes?
I mean, I'm sure there's something online. I can't really think of anything right now that you can, an online resource probably to get your affairs in order.
Okay.
The most important thing, though, that I would recommend, though, seeing it on a daily, mostly daily basis.
Yeah.
People who are fighting over, we know that they said they want to be in a DNR, but a do not resuscitate. But the family is not adhering to their wishes. And we're putting a feeding tube in them. We're doing all these things, and they're suffering.
And
We can physically see them suffering. Their voice is hoarse because every time they turn them, they're yelling. It breaks your heart, especially when you know that's not what they want.
Yeah, and this is different.
Anytime you go to a doctor's office, anytime you go to the hospital, anything medical, you can always ask them about durable power of attorney paperwork.
Durable power of attorney. I'm gonna put that. I'm writing that down.
DPOA or durable power of attorney.
Good to
that
know.
Little paper that says, I want this done, this done, this done. I want this person to be in charge of the decisions in case something happens to me. I sign, you sign, a witness signs. This is a legal binding paperwork.
In fact, now that you mention it, there was one time where my mom went in for surgery, and she's been so close and knocking on death's door so many times, it's almost like she's a cat, This was like one of the probably 15 years ago I had this happen, and I do remember signing one of those because they were going to bring her in for open heart surgery, like triple bypass, and the doctor was like, let me look at that x-ray again, and it turned out all she needed was a stent. So, but that was one of those things that I signed, and I'm like, holy shit, is this real? And they're like, yeah, she may not wake up from this. And I'm like, okay. So, but yeah, I do remember signing. It was, this is what I want. This is who I'm, et cetera, et cetera. So, but cool. I will put that, at least that terminology of durable power of attorney, end of life.
It's never too early to talk about it, too.
No. My wife and I talk about it.
I would like. I'm aware of what Nick would like. We're not married yet, but if something were to happen, they would trust either one of our abilities to know what to do.
Absolutely.
So it's never too early to have that kind of conversation.
I agree.
To get the ball rolling on paperwork, on whatever it is.
Well, and not only that.
Children, if you have, or if you have nobody, if you have no family, definitely have somebody that you can trust, a friend, an acquaintance, whoever you trust. To sign that paperwork for you. Because otherwise, it's all kind of up in the air. We're not exactly sure what to do, what not to do. There's no family to contact. A lawyer has to be brought in, a legal representative outside that kind of makes the decision, and they're not going to know what you want. Yeah,
that's the thing. Well, and not only that, when you're talking, if it's somebody who has no family, is it the hospital's, almost duty to keep them alive if they're told not to if they're not told to do a DNR, a do not resuscitate, isn't the hospital obligated to keep them alive or not?
Yes.
Yeah. And unless so you could linger.
Unless there's a filed DNR, we need to do everything.
That's some scary shit.
If it becomes so advanced that we need to think about hospice care and this and that, maybe we need to bring an outside legal representative to maintain their rights as such. And they'll decide when it's far enough, or if we just switch to comfort care, and because of feeding tubes and all that kind of stuff, outside nutrition, and you could be lingering for way too long.
Oh, yeah.
Way longer than you want to.
Totally. You hear about people being in comas for years. Mm-hmm. And they can keep you alive. They can keep tubes pumping into you if it's brain damage, for example, and you can't speak up for yourself. Yeah, that's some scary shit. So. Or
even if you're not in a coma, too.
Yeah.
There are people that are just so out of it mentally, they can't speak for themselves.
Absolutely.
They may know what's going on the inside, but they may be so aphasic or so unable to talk, they can't tell you.
Yeah. Ugh, that's some scary shit. Because that's one thing I've always said is it's like, I don't want to linger. I want it to be gone and done.
Yeah.
So, well, I do appreciate that bit of advice to everybody listening. So definitely take that into consideration because, again, you never know when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You could get in a car accident.
We see
totally,
massive heart attacks, a stroke, something rupturing, causing massive bleeding, whatever it is. We see that all the time. Ugh. Unfortunately, people come in and out of ICU. Sometimes they get better, sometimes they don't.
Yeah, that's
You
some
know,
scary
some
shit.
people who are 95 years old that are little tiny, frail, whatever, they're still a full code.
Yeah.
Their family doesn't realize how aggressive CPR really is. Somebody that skinny with no extra meat, their bones are so brittle, they're probably not even going to survive the act of CPR. We're going to break their ribs so much that it's going to puncture along. It may puncture the pericardium, it may puncture the actual heart.
Ugh.
And they're just going to die from the act of CPR.
Damn.
Which is a terrible thing, because when you do CPR, sometimes we bring so much oxygen back to the brain that you become semi-conscious.
Oh, Jesus
we don't
Christ.
know.
So you're feeling this and you're aware of the, oh, God.
Possibly. I mean,
there could be a horror movie called
really know
just
what's going on.
CPR. You know, just a horror of that, bringing people back. God. Yeah, that's the stuff you don't think about.
If you have Netflix, Extremis goes into the whole thing about end-of-life care, CPR, that kind of thing, different situations, and how it's affecting this person's end of life. It's an extremely well-done documentary. It's short, but it really brings to light that kind of what you don't understand about do everything means.
That's okay. I will put that in there. I'm going to put a lot of these things in the notes. I mean, I don't know if I can necessarily endorse something, but a suggested thing from, on your behalf, if I can say that. So, I appreciate the advice. You've got me thinking about it. I'm going to probably take that serious, because my wife and I, for years I've been saying, get a will, get a trustee, get et cetera, et cetera. But something I never really thought about is that power of attorney, that, that end of life. What do we really want to happen? Because we've told each other, we both want to be planted as trees. Okay, fine. That's after we're dead. What happens before then? That's something we never consider. So, okay, well, now, I do appreciate you. I appreciate the chat and that extra information. That was 10 minutes of some heavy duty shit right there. So I do appreciate that. That's people are going to appreciate that as well.
It's something I really like to try and push. If we can't help save somebody, giving them at least a better death is a last thing that we can do for them. Yeah.
No, I agree. So, well, you have yourself a, good life at least. Hopefully, hopefully, I know you got, knock on wood, a lot of years ahead of you guys. So, but say hi to Nick and Laura for me, and I will talk to you later.
I will talk to you later. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. Thanks. Bye. Yeah, that is some scary shit there. So definitely, I would say look into that durable power of attorney. Don't put it off. That's something she's got me thinking about. I'm going to look into that as soon as I can, because you never know. You never know when it's going to happen. So definitely something to think about. So in the meantime, live your day, live your life one day at a time. Live YOLO. All that kind of stuff. But have yourself a good day. Have yourself a good life. And just enjoy yourselves.